Siren Song by GaPJaxie. Chapter 13, Quick March, with 18,310 words. Years of being abused by Trixie haven't done her any favors. Rarity explains, her sky chariot banking into a turn as we make our way through Vision's streets. Green never was very emotionally resilient, and the things you hear about that mare and the way she treats his subordinates, why, there's even a rumor that Rarity comes up short, checking her own language. For a moment, she goes stiff, caught in that awkward moment. Then she makes a smooth, dismissive gesture, like she was wiping the words away. That she doesn't treat her hench ponies well. Yes, Miss Rarity. I answer automatically. My mind's not really in the conversation anyway. She's being disingenuous, of course, hiding things that she knows, but under the circumstances, that doesn't really tell me anything. She could be hiding some horrible incident between her and Green in the past, but it's just as likely that all she's concealing is how much she loathes Green, since she knows that would upset me. Given the outburst in the elevator, probably the second one, but there's no reason to make risky assumptions. Dear, it's just Rarity, she says, laughing and trying to lighten the mood with a friendly tone, even a little teasing. Honestly, you sound like one of the security officers. Mr. This, Miss That, yes sir, no ma'am, and a title for every pony. It's like they're afraid of names. I nod to that, and I guess that makes her realize how rattled I'm feeling right now, because she softens her voice. I'm sorry, Siren. You'll be able to see her as soon as the sedative wears off. Probably not more than an hour. I promise. She'll be okay. I know it's a gesture, and a kind one at that. Maybe Rarity does want me as a hostage, but when it's within her power to just throw me into a cell, she's going out of her way to treat me like a friend, to respect my worries and needs. I should be grateful, but I'm not feeling it right now. I force myself to smile anyway, though. It's a weak, worried little gesture, but I make it seem very sincere, and Rarity smiles back. That seems to be enough, and we fall into a mutually understood silence. Her chariot really is a lot like the princess's. A bit less ornate, perhaps, and with a sleeker design, but it was clearly inspired by the royal conveyance. The floor is covered in soft cushions, royal purple instead of golden yellow like Celestia's. The front of it is enchanted to break wind, so we never feel more than a gentle breeze even as we race through the corridors. It even has the little stand the princess's does, for when she wants to read during the long trip, although this mount holds a miniature wire doll instead of a book. The biggest difference has nothing to do with the chariot, though. When I rode with Princess Celestia, there was barely enough room for the two of us, forcing me to stay close to the side. She put her wing over me sometimes. With two normal ponies, the chariot is spacious, and Rarity and I sit a good pace apart. That's for the best, I guess. I think about a lot of things during that silence. Some of them are practical, like how we seem to be moving at right angles to the track Echo's train was on, and what that says about getting to Neptune's bounty the hard way. Some of it is contemplative, like how I might break the news to Rarity if I decide she's trustworthy. Mostly, though, I just think about little things, like Green and Zephyr and Golden Palm, and my friends back in Canterlot. Stupid thoughts. I'm not sure how long that keeps me busy, but eventually, something moves in the corners of my vision. There are things rushing past us. I hear a distant roar, and I realize we're slowing down. Tram rails. That's the difference, I suppose, between Trixie's train tracks and Rainbow's tram rails. Trixie's are ground-bound, boxy, practical, blunt things, like if Earth ponies were trains, clad in their iron horseshoes. Rainbow's trams are more elegant, suspended under their sleek, brass-capped rails, all hardwood and bright metal. She's a flyer at heart, even without the sky, and now her rails twist and bank around us, converging on the station ahead. Carousel Medical Pavilion. That is the full name, isn't it? I'd almost forgotten, with how much the ponies of Vision shorten it to the Pavilion. But now I see where the name comes from. There's no grand entrance, no monolithic building, but there is a ring, a circle of tram tracks and stations and bright lights and glass. It towers 4 stories tall, a maze of paths and stairwells and tunnels and tracks in 3 dimensions, surrounded on all sides by stores, doctors' offices, spas, clinics, tailors, all covered in their gaudy signs and bright decorations, music flowing out of them until it forms a cheerfully tuneless din. And then there's that roar. Water. The ceiling drips from a spiderweb of cracks, but it's like it's meant to be that way. Where the water droplets fall, the white stone sparkles and shines, and the ponies on it seem to shine too. With this much water, I'd expect the floor to be studded with ugly metal drains, but there are none to be seen. Instead, the floor is subtly and gently sloped, collecting the water and guiding it in towards a grand channel in the center of the room. That channel soon turns into a waterfall, spilling down over a wide pathway I think is the entrance. There's a pair of big silver gates there, wide open, and above them, a vertigrized brass sign to welcome visitors. They all seem so happy, I say, as we swing over the center hub. We're too high to make out conversation, but I can still see individual ponies. One sitting on a bench reading a paper, a couple chasing each other through puddles and laughing, two friends talking near some shopping bags, gossiping no doubt. When I look up, I realize we're angling for a series of doors on the far wall, only accessible to Pegasi and sky chariots. Rarity's personal estate, I would assume. Well, why shouldn't they? Rarity asks, energetic and friendly, the outline of a chuckle running under her words. She has this very breathy way of speaking, quick and grand in her gestures and expression. The city is going through a rough patch right now, it's true, but here... She hooks a leg around my shoulder and pulls me forward, gesturing to the vast market below. Here, the glowy days never end. Every pony is smart and beautiful, all our works shine like jewels, and no doctor or merchant turns away a pony in need. She sounds so enthusiastic that I glance up to check her face. I guess after so long here, I expect to see some trace of sarcasm or derision. But there's nothing in her eyes and face but the warm glow of pride. She's watching the market, but I keep my eyes on her. I've met a few of your doctors. They didn't strike me as a charitable type. Well, perhaps not personally, but I'm happy to pay for the ponies who can pay for themselves, she says cheerfully. Below us, the market vanishes from sight completely as we pull onto a large, bare landing pad, the flying ambulance and a few other Pegasi-drawn carts not far behind us. It is a tad expensive, but really, what else would I do with the money? Buy a golden house? Her jest makes me laugh, even if it's not that funny. It's just nicer than I've come to expect, and she delivers it so earnestly. I think you could afford it, I quip back. Not my wittiest, but it'll do. Probably, she admits, a whimsical little twist in her tone. She actually tilts her head upwards to the ceiling as though considering the matter, a silly little grin on her face. Something for the future, perhaps. Her voice and manner are playful as she turns back to me, for trying to make me feel at ease. Now, let's get you settled in. I can only imagine how positively dreadful this whole affair has been for you, she says with that overflowing energy, adding a dash of sympathy. The sooner we can get you back on stable footing and calm those worries, the better. She shifts tones smoothly, from playful to energetic to sympathetic to firm. It's a good effect, and reassuring in its way. She doesn't linger in that tone long, though, forgetting it in an instant as she switches to a quick, practical cadence. We do have some guest rooms available, do we not? Yes, Mr. Rarity. A new voice comes out of nowhere, and I spend a few disoriented moments casting my gaze toward the sound to see who snuck up on us. The voice was clear, but I don't see any pony, and it's not until he continues. If you would give me a moment to check your schedule. And that I realize is one of the Pegasi who was pulling the chariot. I'm so used to thinking of the team as a part of the vehicle that I didn't even notice Rarity's assistants from earlier were right in front of us. It's the blue one who spoke, the dim one, and he takes a second to extricate himself from the harness along with the others. My schedule? Really, Marge, we have a guest, she insists, and suddenly I find a leg put around my withers, sharply pulling me over until I just touch Rarity's shoulder. The other Pegasi pulling the chariot pay us no mind, and they give us a respectful berth as they trot off. Are you really telling me to put this poor thing in a corner and make her wait? No, Miss Rarity, he answers, betrayed by the stiff tremor running through his voice. He reaches back with a wing into the folds of his jumpsuit, pulling out a little pad of paper. But I am telling you that you're supposed to be in surgery in 15 minutes, and then you're meeting Miss Fluttershy at the spa at 4. That's the mare with the maimed wing, yes? Rarity checks, and March nods. Dr. Twirl can handle that, and tell Fluttershy I'll have to cancel. Explain why, she'll understand. You've already cancelled on her twice this month, March answers, glancing down at his notepad. You specifically told me that I was not to let you do that a third time. Yes, and now I'm telling you. Actually, if it's alright with you, I cut in, to the evident surprise of both speakers. I feel about ready to collapse. I think Trixie rushed me along before I was quite ready. If you're busy right now, honestly, I'd prefer to lie down. It's not untrue. I certainly could use the rest, but I'm not going to learn anything about Rarity by going on her little pre-planned tour where every pony bows and scrapes with her passing. If I want to judge her character, I'm going to need to see how the ponies in this place act when their lady and master isn't around. Oh, of course! How could I have been so thoughtless? Rarity asks, letting go of me and taking a half step away so she can give me a long, careful visual inspection. Here I am about to drag you over half the pavilion when you must be run positively ragged. She chides herself, as though only now noticing my disheveled state. Why don't you take the afternoon to recover? We can catch up this evening. I would like that very much, Miss... I catch myself before I finish speaking, and she fixes me with a pointed stare. Which is fair. This is like the third time I've messed that up. Or the fourth. I don't know, but at this point, it's becoming rude. So I cover it up with a blush and an awkward glance at my hooves. I nail it, of course, and before long, she's practically cooing over me. I mean, thank you, Rarity. Think nothing of it, dear, she insists, waving the matter off before turning back to March. Get her settled in and make sure she has everything she needs. She's free to travel in the public areas and to see Green once the on-call doctor says she's fit for visitors. That makes me remember the ambulance, but when I look towards it, the door is already open, and Green is gone. I must not have noticed them moving her out. And let's see, there's something else I'm forgetting, she says, pursing her lips. Oh well, it'll come to me. Will you be all right, Siren? I'll be fine. You should get going. You have a wing to put back together. I say, it sounds a little rigid, but under the circumstances, that's how it should sound. It's fine.
Would you like me to have that washed while you're in surgery, Miss Rarity?
Her assistant asks before she can run off, gesturing at her once proud outfit.
I should be able to have it ready before your meeting with Miss Fluttershy.
No, she sighs, looking down at herself and frowning as she takes in the splattered stains. I'll always know the stain was there. It's tainted now. I'll drop in the incinerator on the way to clean up. Wait, the incinerator? I didn't stain it that badly.
I'll have your tailoring supplies sent to your room,
her assistant says, taking his pen in his mouth to make a jot in a notepad. It really is amazing how he does it all without magic, holding the pad with a wing and a hoof and the pen in his mouth. Pegasus dexterity, I guess. That's what I'm forgetting, she says with some relief, striking the hoof against the ground for emphasis. I don't know what I would do without you. March nods to her, and she turns back to me, giving me one last glance. I'll see you this evening, then. I would miss it. Enjoy your time at the spa, I answer politely, and she trots away, leaving me and her assistant behind. The other ponies have largely cleared off the dock at this point, and so we're very nearly alone as I turn to face him. So, you're March.
Quick March, though March is fine if you prefer, Miss Song,
he says, mouthing the words around the pen. I wonder if that's the same way Echo can hold on to a cigarette even when he's shouting. Probably not. Echo spoke clearly and sharply. March is just kind of mumbling. He makes another mark on his pad and then puts it and the pen away, back into his pocket.
Shall I take you to your guest room now?
He has such a formal, dull method of speaking. Not exactly stupid, but he's certainly not the brightest star in the sky. He waits for me, but I can see the curiosity in his eyes when he realizes I'm not speaking. The faint little tilt of his head and the tension in his ears. I still take the time to examine him, though. He can keep waiting. Stars, he's cute. That's kind of perverse, isn't it? Even though that thought makes me feel greasy. For all I know, he's in his 50s, and I just checked out a pony old enough to be my dad. It's true, though. He's got a great powder blue coat, nice and light without being silly, and this tousled red mane that tumbles down to his left when he tilts his head. By all rights, that ugly uniform should spoil his build, but somehow he manages to convey how athletic he is under it. It's in the way he holds himself, those smooth little motions. Sure, I say, when I realize I'm staring a little. So, you're Rarity's assistant, are you?
I'm her general assistant, yes,
he answers, gesturing me towards one of the distant doors before starting the way himself.
Dr. Side is her aide on medical matters. You may have seen him in the diner. He was the tan Pegasus.
With the red mane, yeah. Like yours, actually. Are you two related by any chance? I ask, keeping an eye on him as we move. He's not totally oblivious. I catch him giving me a few thoughtful sidelong glances, so he's at least figured out I'm evaluating him. That's all about I can say, though, and his body language is straightforward enough besides that.
No, Miss Rarity enjoys that particular shade of red.
He answers plainly. Wow. I assumed he would dress it up a bit more than that. But I guess that sort of thing is considered acceptable down here. Fine, I can be a little more direct. Well, I can certainly see why you got the job, I say, switching tracks to flattery. It's pretty blatant, but not so doughy-eyed I can't switch again if it turns out to be a mistake. I just need to see how he responds, and I can start getting information out of him from there. He's probably soaking up all the attention. Cute, and he knows it. Eye candy for a mare of power and taste.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, Miss Song.
He replies, with a slight nod in my direction.
I pride myself on my attention to detail, and I wouldn't worry too much. You're not the first of Miss Rarity's special guests to ruin one of her things. She's very forgiving.
Or maybe he's a clueless, well-meaning stallion, and I totally misread the entire situation. That could be it too. It's good to know she won't hold it against me, I guess. So what's she like? Personally, I mean. I ask as we near the doors on the far side of the landing platform. They're wide, graceful wooden things, but they're also conspicuously recessed into the hallway, and I can see the steel security door waiting in the ceiling. March doesn't make any notice of it, though, picking up his pace a few steps to hold the door for me.
Complicated. I'm not certain I can do her justice,
he says, thoughtfully. I slip past him as he speaks, and he steps through the door, behind me. The pavilion itself may leak, but these halls are dry, wide, and brightly lit. Very bright, actually. Even the low point of the light's regular beat is too bright, and the high point is so glaring that it actually hurts my eyes. The usually quiet thrumming of the lights is an angry buzz here, threatening to become a pounding in my temples. It makes the whole world flare with white, and the floor and walls have been scrubbed clean until the stone shines, free of any scratches or obstructions.
If forced to describe her, though,
he continues, failing to notice my obvious discomfort at the brightness,
I would say she takes great pride in her work. She appreciates how others make her accomplishments possible, and is generous to them in return. But at the same time, she sees everything she creates as a reflection of herself. She's a very devoted crafts pony.
Is that why green bothers her so much? I reply, light and conversational as we make our way down the hall. I'm seeing spots as my eyes struggle to adjust, but no pony else seems to be making a big deal out of it, so I don't say anything. Besides, I'm sure it'll be a nice effect once I get used to it. There are decorations on the walls, pictures of the city, old posters, staff photos in front of important buildings. They're tasteful, and the gold frames really match the bleached rock all around us. March hesitates for a moment before he answers, and when he speaks, his voice is a touch tighter.
I don't think she would appreciate me talking about that.
Well, March, I also don't think she'd appreciate you being so obviously uncomfortable that you're actually telling me more than a yes would have. But we don't get everything we want. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, I say, quickly covering for the mistake. Saying it a little too fast and following it up with a silence after makes me seem wonderfully awkward, and it's barely a few seconds before he's mumbling about how it's okay and I didn't mean any harm. She, sounds like a pretty good boss. I mean, you obviously have a lot of respect for her.
I've not had other employers to compare her to, but she is very interesting,
he observes as we start down a flight of stairs. The walls painted with 2 long strips of royal purple that give the whole thing a very regal feel.
It is my experience that most artists begin with work that they find meaningful and then spend their careers trying to get others to accept it. Miss Rarity began seeking fame and fortune, but having acquired them, found they are not valuable without some deeper purpose behind them.
He pauses for a moment while he thinks, and it kind of makes me wonder if I did read the situation right in the first place. He seemed afraid of her disapproval earlier, but I have to be blind not to notice the spring in his step when he admires her. Maybe the hair was his choice. I don't quite get a romantic vibe from him, though. I guess they could just be friends.
If I had to summarize, I suppose I would say she makes the pursuit of others' approval seem terribly shallow.
He finally says,
I'm not an artist, but working for her, I get this special sense of satisfaction I don't get anywhere else.
High praise, I say in response, but he only nods. It's a completely biased accounting, of course. Putting aside the fact that Quick March obviously worships the ground Rarity walks on, for some pony who doesn't care about money or fame, Rarity seems to have a lot of both. I know that feint, pretending you don't care about popularity so the ponies who aren't as beloved as you will feel shallow and unlikable. It's stupid and mean-spirited, and it's my trick. She seems to have a bit of a temper, though.
At times.
He agrees without elaborating. We reach our destination before I have time to think of anything else.
These will be your accommodations for the duration of your stay,
Quick March says as he pushes open a set of graceful wooden double doors ahead of us. I didn't even realize we turned out of the main hall, but the bright lacquered wood swings open to reveal a bedroom more suited to visiting royalty than a common guest. It's wide, grand, abandoning the sharp angles and harsh whites of the rest of the pavilion in favor of wide, sweeping curves made to resemble crashing waves. The bed is in the center of it all, mounted on the day 2 steps above the rest of the floor, sharing the space with a pair of end tables. It's a wide sapphire blue thing that manages to feel soft from across the room, and I get so distracted that March is halfway through his next sentence before I even realize he's speaking.
button by the door.
He explains with a patient, efficient clip.
The servants' quarters aren't far. If you need me for anything, there's a wire doll in the study.
A study? I have a study? It's only when it occurs to me to look that I realize there are another 4 exits to this room. 2 more doors on either side, each made of a light wood. I'm still gawking when I realize he's offering me one of those blue tokens, and I belatedly take it. It doesn't help my composure when I try to tuck it into Green's hoof boot, only to remember that all the slots are full, leaving me pawing at the thing for several ungraceful seconds. I get it after a moment, and I put the token in my belt pouch.
You mentioned you wanted rest. Do you wish anything else for the time being? I can have food sent up if you need to recover your strength.
No, I manage eventually. No, some time to rest will be fine. If I don't call for you, you'll wake me before Rarity returns for the evening?
Of course, Miss Song.
Sleep well, he says, nodding his head and stepping back into the hall, letting the doors swing shut behind him. Right, I repeat, as I make my way onto the bed, just for good measure. I don't so much get into the bed as fall into it, tumbling over sideways and landing on the smooth covers. Right. It's silly and stupid, but it feels so nice, and I can't help but laugh. I actually shiver a little as the energy flows out of me, and I almost fall asleep on the spot. It's so tempting to bury my head in the wonderfully soft pillows and drift off, to find a little time to collect myself. I shouldn't, though. I need to get my bearings and decide how I'm going to deal with Rarity. I'll just rest my eyes for a bit. It's time to plan, Siren. Don't wanna. If you lie here, you're going to fall asleep. I'm okay with that. Siren, can I at least stay in bed while I plan? No. Please? No. Now you're going to go to the bathroom and splash some cold water on your face. I let out a little sigh. Fine. It's like my limbs have turned to lead, but I force myself to roll back off the side. I don't so much slide onto the floor as ooze onto it, and my first few steps off the dye are stumbling and distinctly bow-legged. There's a pounding in my ears as I vaguely recognize as my heart, but it's keeping in time with the lights, so I can't be that panicked. It goes away after a few seconds anyway, and I stumble my way towards what I hope is the bathroom. Nope, study, I say to the room that greets me, with its desk and shelf of books and the full-size wire doll in the corner. Next is a small, surprisingly casual dining room, or a large, surprisingly formal breakfast nook. I'm not really sure which. It has a dumbwaiter, and somebody left a fresh newspaper on the table. I hit my target on the 3rd try, pulling open the door to reveal a wide, glittering bathroom. It really does glitter, too. There are mirrors everywhere, coating the walls, the ceiling, the floor, absent only where space was needed for lights or a porcelain fixture. I don't know if the mirrors are enchanted only to reflect ponies, or if there's some very clever arrangement at work, but when I step inside, my image stretches off into eternity from every angle. It's disorienting for a moment. My every motion seems to make the room pinwheel around me, like I was being hurled through some bizarre centrifuge. The moment passes, though, and when I step inside, the surface under my hooves feels more like stone than glass. I can't scuff the mirrors no matter how hard I try, and even a little stomp of my hooves doesn't produce so much as a crack. They must be enchanted to be unbreakable. I can't imagine what this room must have cost, but I suppose Rarity can afford it. There's a shower, and I am still covered in makeup, but I don't feel like showering. Instead, I end up in front of the sink, picking a washcloth from a neatly folded pile nearby. The mirrors in front of me spread open like flower petals, giving me 6 different views of myself, all from useful angles. "Hey there, sexy," I purr, fixing the mirror with a half-lidded gaze and gently treating my life-or-death situation with the seriousness it deserves. Oh, whatever. It makes me smile. Hot water comes out of the tap when I twist the appropriate valve, and I set about washing off the remaining makeup, starting by scrubbing my ankles with the cloth. Okay, so, from the top, assess the situation, assess available resources, define your objectives. My words are clipped, my voice quick and businesslike. It really sets the right tone for things, helps me get in a good frame of mind. The scrubbing would normally be a distraction, but having something to do helps me focus my thoughts, and the water in the sink runs green as I mull the matter over. Rarity has taken you hostage. I open with a frank assessment. The sooner I come to terms with these things, the better. And besides, I'm really good at emphasizing the positive. My tone doesn't draw it out at all, just rips off that band-aid in one go, and it hardly hurts at all. I'd be a great therapist. While her motives are not entirely clear, given the political situation envisioned, it seems likely that she believes holding you will encourage Trixie's good behavior. Fortunately for you, her notion of hostage-taking is a little closer to a noble and reward than the other sort. I'm not actually clear on how hostage-taking works, since it's not like it ever happens in Equestria, but I understand it involves being tied to a chair. That's always how the audience knows someone is a hostage in plays. You're being treated as an honored guest. She's respectful of your feelings, and you're allegedly free to leave, although testing that offer might be imprudent. My angles are about done at this point. Without any hair, there's not a lot for the makeup to stick to, and it comes off pretty quickly. I take a moment to examine them, but my thoughts aren't productive, and I twist over the sink to start on my shoulder and side. This in and of itself represents a significant improvement of your circumstances. I grunt, trying to keep the mess in the sink as I scrape this makeup off. Whatever green used on my barrel doesn't seem to be as water-soluble as the dye was, and it's coming off like paint chips, a shower of ugly, flaking pieces. However, there is an additional factor to consider. Rarity does not appear to share the city's overwhelmingly negative opinion of Celestia and Equestria, and might be willing to entertain the notion of sending you home. If true, this would mean that you're home free. However, broaching the subject will require considerable finesse and entail significant risk. If Rarity is not as understanding as you might hope, alerting her to your origins will sink all chances of escape. Yeah, that sounded good. Authoritative. Chilling. Very. Your mission, should you choose to accept it. Makes me feel like I know what I'm doing, which I do, of course, even if this stupid makeup is sticking to the cloth until I have to scrape it off the drain just to get it to come off. Shoot, I think this is one of those makeups you're supposed to remove with alcohol. Whatever, I can just scrub harder. Right, step 2, assess available resources. I shrug off the belt and fold it next to the sink when my scrubbing reaches that point. You retain your previously mentioned material resources, to wit, knives, food, water, some basic medical supplies, some bits, and one high-end mantle. However, your greatest asset will be your freedom and the privileges that come with being a guest. While details are not available at this time, your options are now significantly less restricted than they have been in the past. Be sure to take full advantage of that fact. Step 3. Define your objectives. I grunt, twisting my spine around so my flank is up on the counter, leaving my side over the sink. Your goal here is simple, though challenging. You must learn enough about Rarity to determine if it is safe to approach her honestly. If so, you must... The washcloth is stuck under my side, pinned there by the little motions of my body. I give it a sharp tug, trying to make it come free, rolling my flank a bit off the countertop as I pull on the fabric. Suddenly, the cloth yanks itself free, and my flank comes free with it. I'm falling. I let out a startled little shriek as I twist around, my legs reflexively falling out to grab the countertop. My hooves scramble on porcelain and glass, but I can't get a grip. Then I'm tumbling down, landing hard on my side. The impact knocks the wind out of me, and for a second, I lie there dazed, but I think I'm okay. There's no real harm done. Then the washcloth lands on my face. I shake the washcloth off and pull myself back up with a stiff groan. For a second, I think I must have gotten some of the makeup in my eye. My vision is full of ugly green splotches, covering everything in sight. It's not my eye, though. It's the mirrors. I've left an ugly green mess all over the floor, smearing the makeup up and down my sides, over my face, my shoulder. It splattered on the mirrors, and with how this room is arranged, the green carries everywhere, seeming to cover every surface. "Looking good, idiot," I muttered to the mirrors, splattered flecks of makeup surrounding my reflection. Going for the unexpected twist ending, were we? Siren survives all the horrors of vision, only to slip and crack her head open on the bathroom counter? My throat is tight, painful, and the words come out ragged and rough. 5 sirens at the rim all fix the one in the center with a glare, curt and sharp. I'm not saying it isn't deep, but do you think you could go for the version where she doesn't screw up everything she touches? I draw a slow breath. It's unsteady, coming in little starts and stops, and I can see it from every angle. My eyes are wide, ears folded back, muzzle all twisted up. The makeup is smeared over my face and sides, and with how tense I am, it's bunched up into ugly, cracked lines. I'm trembling a little, in the chest and along my barrel like a shiver. You're not crazy if you realize how crazy you just sounded, right?